Justin Verlander has agreed to a one-year, $15 million deal with the San Francisco Giants, and Brent Rooker has agreed to a deal with the Oakland A's, now Sacramento A's, a 5-year extension. That and more ahead here at The Upside. And welcome into MLB Hot Stove Daily. My name is Michael. Appreciate you guys joining us here at the Upside Sports Network. Make sure you guys hit that like and subscribe if you are new here. We'll be live with you guys every single evening, bringing you the latest from MLB's Hot Stove. So be sure to hit that subscribe button. Follow us on X at UpsideSN and on Facebook, Upside Sports Network. Big news of the day is Justin Verlander has agreed to a one-year, $15 million deal to go to the San Francisco Giants. Now remember, they were looking for upgrades to their rotation pretty much the entirety of this offseason. They were considered the favorite to be able to bring in Corbin Burnes. Ultimately, he decided to go a little bit closer to home. He lives in Scottsdale, Arizona, and said, hey, Arizona, you want to go ahead and sign me? And they got it done. So San Francisco was expected to look for some more starting pitching. We had theorized that maybe Andrew Heaney or somebody else on the free agent market might pique their interest, possibly some trade interest in a Dylan Cease or a Luis Castillo or some other starting pitcher. Ultimately, they decided to go a little bit cheaper so they have more money to be able to spend next offseason. But you look at their rotation this year with Verlander in it, you'd have to say Webb is their number one, maybe Ray is their number two. Verlander probably fits in there as their number three, maybe their number four. I think Verlander's pretty much washed at this point in his career. He basically signs a deal very comparable to what Alex Cobb just got from the Detroit Tigers. I don't have a lot of faith in him being able to resurrect his career after a down year last year, and I think we're seeing the final farewell tour of Justin Verlander. So we'll see what he does. We'll see what the San Francisco Giants ultimately look like going into the year, but at least it's more competition and a little bit better pitching staff going into a very difficult division in the NL West. Welcome in Master Vinman, Rafe, Nando, Paranormal, Callie. Appreciate you guys joining us today. Let's go ahead and check out this. We'll start at the top anyway with the comments. Rafe, Verlander move is a head scratcher for me. As far as the destination, it is a little bit of a head scratcher. I thought Verlander was probably going to be trying to go to a team that was going to push for a wild card spot, maybe even be a favorite for a World Series run. A team like the Philadelphia Phillies, if they had chosen not to go after Jesus Luzardo, could have been a fit there. I thought the Baltimore Orioles might look like a fit there because they're still looking for a number one. Maybe they could fool themselves into thinking Justin Verlander is still a number one at this stage of his career, even though he is clearly not. But ultimately, he goes to the San Francisco Giants. I think it's a good move because the deal itself is only for 1 year. I think this is just to increase their overall rotation depth, and they have a ton of young pitchers coming. We already have multiple articles out there saying that he's going to be part of the mentorship there for the Giants. I'm not sure if he's there so much for the mentorship aspect of it, but just as a case to legitimize themselves again in free agency, instead of having to spend on a 5-year, multi-year deal for Pete Alonso for all kinds of millions of dollars. Instead, they just get 1 year, $15 million for Justin Verlander, and still accomplish the same goal that they're turning the page from the Farhan Zaidi era of the San Francisco Giants. Rafe, also Rangers seemed done besides maybe a quote-unquote quality closer. And that's it. That was a quote from Ross Finstermaker, the Rangers general manager. I don't necessarily think they're done adding to the bullpen. While it's not necessarily a top priority at the moment because they've continued to add and add and add to their bullpen, I think this is just wordplay in the media. I still think they're going to get a number one closer back there. I think Kirby Yates still probably priority A, B, and C right now outside of Roki Sasaki because that's really the one hole on this team. Remember, Chris Martin's never really saved more than 14 games total in his career, no more than 4 in any given season, and he's not exactly going to be the healthiest chicken throughout the entire season. He always has some type of back issue, arm issue. Not to say he's not a great pitcher when healthy, but his availability is limited at times during the season. So to count on him as a closer when he's never really proven the ability to do so for more than a few games a year is a little bit of a head scratcher to me. I don't think they're going to turn to Robert Garcia. I think there's a good chance Josh Spores ultimately turns into the closer, and they may go with a Mark Church or somebody like that as far as a young guy in that closer spot at times. I think their preference to start the season is certainly to bring in a guy like Kirby Yates and just see where the chips fall. We'll see. We'll see who they ultimately bring in, but I think it's still priority number one right now on the board, no matter what lip service they give it to the media. Rafe, A's are actually cooking only because we used to nothing, but still, or they used to not do anything. Okay. They still need to spend more money because they spent this on Rooker now. They still have to spend probably another $10 to $13 million more just to avoid having a grievance filed against them by the Players Association. Great deal, though, for the A's. They get a good, high-quality player in Brent Rooker who's probably had his career year this past year, and I don't think he's going to be able to improve much from there. But they've locked up their offense now for at least a few years, so their offense should still be a prolific one for them. The pitching staff still has some foibles there. You still need some starting pitching. You're still going to need a few bullpen arms. Mason Miller's dynamic at that ninth inning closer role, but their offense is really going to be the focal point of this team if they're going to do anything and possibly climb out of that fourth spot in that division. Nando, you think the Padres hurt their Sasaki chances with all their ownership drama? It's hard to see that it doesn't affect it. I mean, what type of pitcher who's looking to be the greatest he can possibly be goes to a situation where ownership is the issue? We see that not just in baseball anyway, but in football, basketball, any other sport out there. If there's ownership question marks, you wonder about the ability to develop talent overall. Not to say that the Padres couldn't, walk and chew gum, be able to handle the off-field, ownership drama and still be able to manage things on a day-to-day basis just fine. I think the baseball entity itself will be just fine, but why even bother with having that type of a headache? Sure, you'll primarily be dealing with the coaches, the players on your team, A.J. Preller and the other medical staff and training coaches and all that kind of thing. You'll rarely ever meet with ownership, but how often are you going to be asked about that, how ownership affected your decision to come there? Is ownership affecting you now that you've already agreed to sign here? Are you regretting your decision to come to San Diego because of the ownership issues? Those are questions Sasaki would have to answer if he went to San Diego that he wouldn't have to answer before this drama started to unfold. So it's hard to imagine a world where it doesn't hurt their chances. It certainly doesn't help. I think at best Padres fans can hope for is a neutral, hey, this doesn't matter to me type of thing. But it's hard to imagine that it doesn't hurt their chances just a little bit. Paranormal, hey, so the Yankees are in on Brandon Rogers, Luis Arraez, and Jorge Polanco. What do you think they're going to get out of those people, since I've seen that all day long? I saw a few of those articles as well. I didn't see the Brandon Rogers article, but I did see the Polanco and Arraez was yesterday as well. My preference out of those guys would be Luis Arraez, but that's contingent upon them finding a deal for Marcus Stroman. The Yankees are also shopping him. We'll see if they can offload that salary. That would be great for them. But Arraez would be the belle of the ball there for me. Second place for me, I'd rather have Brandon Rogers just because I think he still has a little bit of untapped potential. Polanco, we already know what he is. To me, I think he's a player that gets replaced at the trade deadline by a bigger acquisition. So I would try to avoid Polanco. If I'm looking for a low-cost addition in free agency, Iglesias probably be the guy I would target. But Arraez, I think the rumors there are serious. Heyman put a little bit of cold water on that one, though, basically saying they still don't like his defense. And while I think that is 100% accurate, I think they realize the need for an impact bat in that lineup. While you're thinking impact is usually power, impact can be getting on base in front of your power hitters like Aaron Judge and all the other guys that you brought in this offseason. So I still think Arraez is the best bet there if they're able to offload Stroman. Vinman, with a huge relief pitcher market, are we waiting for the top relievers to set the market before seeing more signings? Yes, I think Tanner Scott, we were expecting to get 4 for 50, 4 for 56, 4 for 60. I think his market is significantly above that. I think we're looking closer to the $20 million range. The Mets have certainly entered the chat there. They actually met with Tanner Scott the other day, and could we see a signing there? Kirby Yates has also had his name in several different clubs over the last week or two. I would expect both of those guys to come off the board relatively quickly, and when they do, I think the rest of the relief market pretty much falls in line. The Rangers are one of the most active teams in free agency. They've made no bones about this offseason trying to add to that bullpen. They've added how many guys off of the free agent market so far? I think 4 guys off the free agent market. Somewhere around there. Webb, Armstrong, Milner, Martin. In trade, they brought in Garcia. That's 5 relievers the Rangers have brought in already, in addition to the ones they're having return. And there's still plenty more out there. There's Probably 40 to 50 decent relievers that are on the market right now that could serve some type of a role on a major league team next year. So I would expect the top guys to come off the board relatively soon, and then we see the rest of the market follow up fairly quickly thereafter. Cali Yankees fan, Marcus Stroman market is heating up. It is. I think that's more about the Yankees trying to push that salary onto another club. I think they're trying to see what they can get as far as in return for Stroman, see if they attach a decent piece to him and see what they can get back, or if somebody's willing to just take his salary and just use him as a pitcher in their rotation, looking at the Oakland A's or Sacramento A's for that one there. Welcome in, everybody. Holly, welcome back. JS, appreciate you joining us once again. Make sure you guys hit that like and subscribe if you have not done so already. It does certainly help us out. Thoughts on Sasaki mystery team? I don't think it's necessarily a mystery. I think we've already discussed all the teams that are there, the quote-unquote favorites: Yankees, Mets, Cubs, Rangers, Padres, and Dodgers. Padres were the only team that quote-unquote hadn't met with him, or at least hadn't publicized a meeting with them yet. We pretty much know that they've met with him, though. Mariners are one of those teams that's quote-unquote a mystery team. I don't think there's anybody outside of that that's really a quote-unquote mystery, though. Teams like the Phillies and Red Sox were hoping to get a meeting with Sasaki. Sounds like that never happened, and sounds like they've already been ruled out as a suitor for Roki. But we'll see where he goes. There's a few different independent reporters out there that are saying the Rangers have a legitimate shot to be able to pry him away. We'll see if he ultimately goes to Texas, but I still think the front runner has to be the Dodgers. I think it's a little bit slimmer. Each day this thing kind of drags on, not for any reason as far as, hey, he could sign now or now or now. I think it's just more of the more information he gathers from other clubs, I think the more inclined he is to give other teams a fair shake. Now, do I still think the Dodgers are ultimately going to get him? I do. I think the Padres are still probably the second choice there. Rangers probably the third or fourth, depending on what other destination he would prefer. But I think the more time that he invests into looking into each one of these teams, the more risk that the Dodgers have of losing him in free agency. JS, Dustin Harris looked promising despite the small sample size last year. Does he see more opportunities this year? No, unfortunately not. I think Dustin Harris has pretty much reached the end of the line with the Rangers anyway. I think he's probably going to be traded at some point as part of a package for a pitcher at the deadline or something along those lines. I think they could give him a cup of coffee at first base, but I think the only way he takes significant playing time there is if there's an injury to Berger or an injury to Duran and Smith. Something along those lines where it requires them to call him up and see what he's got. But short of that happening, I don't see him cracking onto this roster. One player I'm looking for the Rangers to try to figure out how to get him on the roster is Jonathan Ornelas. He had a decent run with the Rangers last year. I think there's a real chance he could break through with the big league club. I haven't seen the breakdown of the 40-man yet. I can't remember if he's still on the roster, honestly. Let me double check that real quick. I just can't remember if he's still there. He should be. I think he's got control. Yeah. That's one player I'm looking for the Rangers to give a little bit more time to. When he was given an extended look, he looked good last year. And we'll see what the Rangers do. They have a lot of guys that they can flex all over that infield. Just look at this group of infielders the Rangers have. Smith, they can use literally anywhere. Ornelas, anywhere. Foscue, probably more second base primarily. But can play a little bit of third and a little bit of the outfield, maybe a game or two at first base. I think they'll probably use him at first base in spring training and see if he can hold down the position if needed. And Ezekiel Duran. 1, 2, 3, 4 guys they can flex behind their starters, which on opening day, you're probably going to have Seager at your short, Simeon at your second base, Young at third, and then you're probably going to have Berger at first base. And then you have all these guys still sitting on your bench or at the DH role. Rangers have a pretty good chance of making a trade from one of those minor leaguers or one of those major league roster players for another piece. Maybe a closer could be coming here soon, but we'll have to see where they go. Paranormal, Luis Arraez would be my favorite as well. I would agree there. Hank, welcome back. Appreciate you joining us once again. No matter what's going on, there's always an upside. Sports Network. Thank you, my friend. That's pretty good. Master Vinban, is the NL East going to be competitive, or are the Mets going to run away with it? Competitive. I don't think the Mets are running away with it. I think they're probably going to be a 2 or 3 game victor over the Phillies. I think they're probably 5 or 6 ahead of the Braves. Chuck, welcome in. Appreciate you joining us. Who's holding up a Castillo to Orioles deal? O's not willing to move enough, or Mariners asking too much? I think the Mariners are just looking for a better trade overall. I don't think they necessarily like the return that they'd be getting from the Orioles. You'd get Mountcastle and basically a bunch of cap savings is what you'd really be counting on there, and then use the money that you're saving on Castillo to bring in another guy via free agency. Not exactly getting the biggest bang for your buck there. We floated the idea the other day of a trade that sends Luis Ariz and Jake Cronenworth to the Mariners in exchange for Luis Castillo. That trade would make a lot more sense to the Mariners. They get two major league guys on their roster for about the same cost of Castillo, and it's about the similar value there. That would also facilitate a trade of Dylan Cease from the San Diego Padres. I think that's also in the offing. I think the Orioles would rather have Dylan Cease anyway, so maybe we see a three-team deal between those clubs there. But if I had to say who's holding up the deal, I just think the Mariners don't really like the return the Orioles have. I don't think they necessarily like the pieces that they would be getting. I'm not saying that they don't have great pieces. I'm just saying they don't line up well for a Castillo trade outside of Mountcastle. Let's see here. Nando, the Dodgers got fleeced for Lux. They really didn't package him for a better deal somewhere. I don't think they really need to package him. I like the return that the Dodgers got. I don't think they necessarily got fleeced. Was it an underpay by the Reds? Yes, I would agree there. But that's just the market in general telling us that. I like the prospect that they got. They valued him 2 years ago when they drafted him in the 16th round. Then when he was drafted by the Cincinnati Reds in the 3rd, the Dodgers really prioritized him still. And you can see that because he hasn't played a game yet in minor league ball, major league ball, or anything for the Reds. Basically took the rest of the year off and let him kind of develop off the field. And the Reds ultimately trade him before they even see him in a Reds uniform. So they really like the player there, and they're getting a supplemental pick here out of this deal as well. I think it's also saving them a boatload of money because of the taxes involved on Lux's deal. Even though he was making $2.7 million, they're going to save a boatload in taxes by just offloading that salary. So I do actually like the trade for the Dodgers. They had 5 guys capable of playing shortstop on their roster already, Gavin Lux being one of those guys. They still have a glut of middle infielder type of players who can move all over that diamond, like the Rangers do. But we'll see, what ultimately happens with the rest of that Dodgers lineup. I know all you guys are, eventually going to ask me, will Arenado ultimately go to the Dodgers? Still not likely to happen. I'd still put it at almost a completely 0% chance. Paranormal, thank you for always answering me. I appreciate it. Absolutely. Glad I can always answer these questions. If you guys have questions or if you just want to comment, support the channel, go ahead and send those comments. Tell us who your favorite team is, where you're watching from. If you want to support the channel, we do encourage super chats as well. Those of you who have sent them in the past, thank you very much. It goes a long way to helping us out. I've got about 50 of you guys with us right now, so thank you guys for joining us this evening. Let's see here. Rafe, I saw some that said Polar Bear interest was being led by Blue Jays or Red Sox. Thoughts? I'm a little bit surprised to see the Blue Jays in there, but at the same point, they've really done nothing this offseason. If they're going to add at least some bat, maybe they can put Alonso at DH this year, put Guerrero over there at first base. If Guerrero leaves in free agency, then at least have a first baseman in line there with Alonso. Do I like the move for the Blue Jays? Absolutely not. Red Sox, they've been uncomfortable, would be a nice way of framing it around Tristan Casas. I think the need for them would be a big upgrade as far as a power bat, a right-handed hitting power bat. If they miss on Bregman, maybe bringing in on Alonso would be a nice filler option for them. Alonso's a better option than Casas, I do believe. But you'd have to turn around and trade Casas somewhere. We'll see what they do. But I still think Bregman's more likely than Alonso to the Red Sox, and I don't think either option is very likely at all. Both options I'd put at less than probably 5-6%, honestly. All right, let's kind of go through a few more of these comments here. Nando, no club matches up with that with what the Dodgers can offer Sasaki. He'd be a fool to choose otherwise. I don't know about that. I mean, the Rangers have a really good international scouting system. They've been comfortable with him for years. They have really great facilities. You see even the Dodgers. Yes, your Dodgers. A lot of Dodgers fans in our chat. When they came over during the COVID season and played the World Series in Texas at that ballpark, they were the team that got to use the home dugout for the Texas Rangers. Jock Peterson and company were a part of that team at that time. And you can definitely see, how they were impressed by the clubhouse that the Rangers had. Not to say that, the clubhouse makes the team or makes it a compelling reason, that pushes you over the top to, bring in a, top flight free agent, but it certainly doesn't hurt. And, I still think the Dodgers are the favorite, but I think this is becoming a little bit more of an equal race for the other teams that are in this one. Teams like the Padres, teams like the Rangers, the Cubs, the Mets, the Yankees, etc. Whoever else might still be in the running. I think it's a little bit more even than we had originally expected it to be, and we'll see where he goes. Remember, he's not going to sign until after the 15th of January. There's been some discussion from Roki Sasaki's camp that he wants that farm system to continue to be beefed up as well. So he might not take the full international bonus pool from a team. He might take $5 million of it and let you take the rest and spend it on a couple of top flight guys out there. But he wants to make sure that team is going to be competitive for a long period of time. One would find it hard to argue that the Dodgers do not have one of the most competitive teams and a wide open contention window with Shohei Ohtani on their active roster and the farm system that they have there. The Rangers boast a really good team and a decent farm system as well. There's a few other clubs that meet that description that are still in there for Sasaki, but we'll see where he goes. Rafe, do pitchers and catchers report next week? I don't believe so. I think we're still a little early for that. Can't remember when. Let me pull this up here. Tokyo series there. They usually have a web page with the date of pitchers and catchers. Spring training will be February 20th is the first game. So I'd say pitchers and catchers usually report at least a couple weeks before that. So we're probably looking a few weeks away. Cowboys Nation, you see you getting Yushi drunk. I did not see that one anyway. Evening, gents. Anyone else got 14 inches of snow on the last couple of days? Not yet. We will be getting some accumulation here in the next couple of weeks or couple of days anyway. Welcome back, Christopher. Appreciate you joining us. Isn't he owed a ton of money? Tigers might release Baez. What happened to him? Baez has been terrible for the Tigers, honestly, and they don't really like his clubhouse demeanor, and so they might be willing to move on from him. The part of the reason why Bregman is being held up by the Detroit Tigers is because they're worried about another, Javi Baez level signing. That didn't really go their way, and they would hate to have a repeat of that. I don't think Bregman is ever going to be the player that Javi Baez was, as far as just the lackadaisicalness of which he plays. Very mercurial talent. He's great for 2 months with the Mets when they make the trade for him. Ultimately, he got paid off of that, and he was always known as a high strikeout guy, high swing and miss type of a player. But he doesn't really seem like a clubhouse leader the way Bregman is. So Tigers, I think, will be better with Bregman than they will Baez, but I can understand their hesitation to give another big deal like that. Red Sox were one of the worst defensive teams in the league the last season. They need to focus on run prevention. Arenado makes sense to me. We'll start with the defensive part of this. They're still going to have Duran in their outfield. They're probably going to move Abreu over to left. They're going to have Roman Anthony in there in right. That's going to help their defensive alignment in the outfield. The infield, pretty much set as well with Devers at third. You got your shortstop. You got Story, I believe, over at second base. And then you got Casas at first. If they bring in Arenado, you probably move over Devers to first base. If you bring in Bregman, you move over Devers to first base. There's some folks out there who believe Bregman would be their second baseman. We shall see. But that'd be one way to improve their defense. Arenado, even though he's open to going to the Red Sox, and I do agree he would help out their defense, I'm not sure how much of an improvement overall he would make for the Boston Red Sox. I'm not sure why they would bring him in. I'm not sure how big of an improvement he is for that team overall. And so if there's a question of whether or not this is really going to help you with such a good young team, I just err on the side of caution and not do the trade. Verlis, welcome back. Welcome back. Jim, thank you for joining us once again. It's all a head game for Torkelson 2 years ago. Miggy tutored him. Bring back Coach Miggy. Torkelson's going to start the year in AAA, I do believe. You got Colt Keith now over there at first base. You're going to have Torres in there, probably at second base, somewhere in there. You're going to have Jace Young factoring in there at some point. If you bring in Bregman, they'd love to have him there. Obviously, if they miss on Bregman, sounds like they're targeting Yoan Moncada. Not sure how big of an impact he would make on that roster, but Bregman would be the guy I would really be trying to get right now if I'm Detroit Tigers. D-Rod, welcome back. Hey, pal, how's the snow piling up? Nothing yet. It was bright, sunshiny day, but it was cold. We will get some precipitation tomorrow night, and then Thursday night as well. So probably be driving into work on some ice Thursday and Friday. Randy, I don't think Nato is traded to the Dodgers unless the AAV gets to 10 or 12, or the Cardinals will need to get, what was the rest of that comment? To add another player. I mean, if they're giving up that much, or they're retaining that much salary, if I'm the St. Louis Cardinals, I would need a premium return from the Dodgers to bring him in, and I don't think there's a necessity to bring him in at this point. You got Kim, you got Edman, you got Betts as well. I'm sure I'm missing a few others. Rojas, Muncy. You got plenty of guys who can cover over there at third base without having Nolan Arenado on that roster. And they're still going to bring in a relief option as well. Tanner Scott has seemed to have picked up his market over the last 24 hours. Mets have met with him in the last 24 hours as well. Dodgers, Yankees are still in that market. Rangers, to a certain extent, have kicked the tires on it. But it sounds like he might be getting closer to the number he was hoping for coming into free agency at around 20 per season. It'd be crazy to see the Mets get him because they already have Diaz at around $20 million. Now you'd be adding a setup guy at the same number. That's a lot of money for your back end of the bullpen when they haven't really gone out there and spent on their starting staff. Just an interesting observation there if the Mets get him. Let's see here. Cubs got PCA for him. Let's see here. Trying to catch up on your comment here. For Baez, yeah. I mean, Pete Crow Armstrong's a really good player for the Cubs. Welcome in Jay Snow, Michael Rowland, always on late, working hard. Mad respect for you, my brother. Yeah, I do try anyway. We started a little earlier today, got off work a little bit earlier today, and wanted to get out there and catch up on some headlines for you guys. Wanted to go ahead and do a live breaking video for you guys with Justin Verlander, but I thought, this guy's washed. I don't need to do Justin Verlander. We'll save that one for when we get a really big free agent. We still came on within 20-30 minutes of him signing the deal. So, Verlander, 1 year, $15 million to the Giants. Let's go ahead and head over to X and see if anything else is happening this evening. Sad news to report anyway is that the Baltimore Orioles family lost a family member today. Brian Matusz passed away at 37 years old. I haven't heard anything as far as what caused it or anything like that, but just sad to see a guy who had such promise and just got through his playing career and was about to enjoy his second half of life with his family and moving forward, passing away. So tough to see that one taken so young, 37 years old. That's only a couple years older than me. And thoughts with the Orioles organization, Brian Matusz, and his family and friends. There's the tweet there by the Baltimore Orioles. All right, let's get on to some other rumors here. A.J. Minter has picked up another club with interest in him. Rangers earlier this offseason were heavily interested in bringing him in. Sounds like they went a little bit cheaper there with Hobie Milner and those type of players instead. Minter, I think, is still on the board for the Rangers as far as a possibility, but the Braves are kicking the tires on him. The Cubs, I've heard as well. Mets at one point, Yankees at another, and now the Red Sox are showing interest in A.J. Minter. Got to think one of these teams is eventually going to give him a salary that he's looking for. You look at the deal Michael Lorenzen got, I think he's going to be used as a bit of a swingman out of that bullpen for the Kansas City Royals. 1 year, $5.5 million with a year, $1.5 million buyout on next year's deal, which will likely be bought out because it's a $12 million option, unless he becomes like a Cy Young level player for them. But I'm expecting him to be used primarily as a long guy out of the bullpen and a spot starter. I think we're looking around a 1 year, maybe a 2 year commitment for Minter here, with anywhere between, say, $4 to $7 million, depending on how a team values him. But I think he'd be a good left-handed relief option for somebody out there. Just a matter of who's going to pony up the money to get it across the board, or across the finish line anyway. But Red Sox add him to the list as far as teams interested in A.J. Minter. It sounds like the Twins are expecting to have their ownership issue resolved by the opening day. They have a quote-unquote robust market, according to Twins beat reporters, and that's good news. I mean, I'm a Twins fan, have been for decades now at this point, and it's tough to see a situation that they're in, not willing to spend money, looking to offload salary to be able to make it a more convincing destination, as far as a more attractive destination for ownership groups to come in. But it sounds like they've got enough interest to where they may not have to offload some salary. Now, are they going to add salary? Probably not. I think this probably means Carlos Correa, if they are able to find a trade for him that makes sense for the Twins, they will do it. I don't think they're going to retain too much salary at this point to make it palatable for another team to bring him on. I think they'll just stick with Correa at this point. As far as Pablo Lopez, I think it's more of going to be a baseball trade at this point rather than just, again, trying to build for the future or just selling high on a pitcher because you're going to be entering a quote-unquote retool rebuild phase. I think it's going to be a quote-unquote baseball trade, real talent going back to the Twins rather than what might have been seen as a bit of a discount on them because of their ownership situation. Lopez is a pretty good pitcher as well. I think he'd be a great number one for the Orioles, who need a number one right now. I think that trade could happen before the season or at the deadline. But I think the impetus for the trade is not going to be because their ownership group for the Twins, now that they've got such a deep market out there for a possible new owner as well. You guys mentioned the Padres and their ownership issues. Matt Seidler, part of the lawsuit that's going on there, basically was thrown under the bus in that document saying that he was thinking about relocating the team. Got to think more of these headlines that come out that it's going to be less and less likely that we see Roki ultimately go to the Padres. So not to say this is going to disqualify them, but it's something to kind of keep in mind there as well. John Heyman reporting that the Yankees are checking in on Polanco among many infield options. Little bit of news on the Pittsburgh Pirates as well. They're looking for a bench bat, an outfield bat as well. They've kicked the tires on Alex Verdugo over the last 24 hours, in addition to Randall Grichuk. We told you guys after the holiday season we were expecting to see some activity. Finally, we got some yesterday. We get some more today, and hopefully over the rest of the week, the activity really gets up. Remember, we're about a month and change away from spring training happening, and these guys have to get on teams, get their new homes, get settled in, all that kind of thing. And we don't want to see a repeat of what we saw last year with Jordan Montgomery and Blake Snell. That's the last thing I think anybody wants in this sport right now. They want to resolve this free agency and see what they can do to get their teams set before they get to spring training. Let's catch up on a few of these other comments. Christopher, watching from Redondo Beach in Los Angeles. Prayers to my neighbors 15 miles north of me in the Pacific Palisades. Very windy and out of control fires. I heard about that. Hopefully those that are affected by those wildfires are able to get to safety, and hopefully they can put that out pretty soon. With wildfires, you never know, though. Sometimes those things can burn for days and days and days. I'm hoping they can get that under control because wildfires are a scary thing, my friend. You never know which way they're going to go. They change with the wind direction. Drop of a hat, they can change if there's more, if it's easier for them to burn one direction over another. All kinds of things can affect it, and it's just very difficult to put out. And especially in such a populated area, would like to see, that get to put out before too many people are affected by it. So thoughts with them as well on this difficult Tuesday for many out there. All right, Demon D, welcome in. Aiden, welcome back. Anthony, welcome in. If you guys are new here, make sure you guys hit that like and subscribe. Got about 33 likes. Let's see if we can bump that over 40 before we get to the 40-minute mark here. If you guys want to hit that like and subscribe, we'd greatly appreciate it. Demon D, what's the word on the Yankees news? News on the Yankees is that they're looking for a second base / third baseman. Names that have been brought up over the last 24 hours include Luis Arraez, Jorge Polanco. What was the other name I saw just a minute ago? One of you guys posted it. Brendan Rodgers, that was the other one anyway. But they're still looking for left-handed relief help. Chafin is one of the names. Tim Hill. They've also been targeting Tanner Scott. They're looking at trading Marcus Stroman. They're looking at all avenues to improve their club, both selling off some salary in Marcus Stroman and acquiring some talent there in Luis Arraez. We'll see which direction they go. Aiden, welcome in. Anthony, how much did Houston get back for Verlander? Nothing. Verlander was a free agent. 1 year, $15 million is what he signed with the San Francisco Giants. I hope he's got one more year left in him, but we'll see. Jason, oh, damn, what's the temp like? I'm in Cali right now. Right now, it is... Let me see if I can pull it up here. 32, right at freezing. The low tonight is 26, which is actually warmer than it's been the last 2 nights for us here. I'm about an hour and a half east of Dallas anyway. Verlander was a free agent. Yes, Randy, Dodgers report to Glendale on February the 8th. Dodger Fest will be held on February the 1st in LA. Awesome. I am looking forward to pitchers and catchers reporting because, well, that means baseball's back and we can finally start discussing what rotations are going to look like, what bullpens ultimately are going to shake out like, what the position battles are going to look like in spring training, who's ultimately going to make the team, who's not, who could be traded right at the end of spring training because they're not going to make the roster. All kinds of activity we're expecting as we get closer to spring training and opening day. So make sure you guys hit that like and subscribe, and we'll keep you guys updated every single night. Be sure to tune in around 9 o'clock. We'll be live. Abraham, how would you fix the Mariners? First thing I would do is I would try to make the trade that we proposed the other day with the San Diego Padres, bringing in Arise and Cronenworth. If I couldn't do that trade, I would do a trade that would allow me some financial flexibility. Mountcastle makes sense as far as one piece that could come back from the Orioles, but I would want additional assets, and I'm not sure the Orioles are going to be the team that does it. Another way I could do it is try to use try to use Castillo's deal to bring in a couple of major league talent. For instance, a guy like Josh Smith probably has a little bit too much value from the Rangers to be able to acquire Luis Castillo. Not saying that he's a better player. I'm just saying that the salary attached to Smith versus the salary attached to Castillo and their impact on the field, I'm not sure it'd be a fair, equitable value going back to the Mariners if something like that happened. But if I had to pick a way for the Mariners to go, I would say the trade for the Padres to kind of get 2 pieces into that offensive structure and then use the remaining $15 million to bring in another bat to that lineup. I think one name that's been connected quite frequently is Justin Turner, possibly going back to the Mariners. I heard his name in connection with the Boston Red Sox over the last couple of days as well. There was another team as well that was mentioned for Justin Turner, but if I had to pick one, I would say the Mariners right now because you can play him first base, DH. I think his bat would be really useful in that lineup, and it's not going to cost a whole lot. I think you're probably looking $8 to $10 million for a 1-year deal for Justin Turner. Let's see here, Christopher. It was 72 degrees today on the beach. Same for tomorrow. Should be high 70s. Well, we're envious of you just a little bit there. See if we can catch up on a few of these comments. So if I go fast through these, I do apologize. Dan, bro, I wish it was freezing in New York City. It's freezing in New York City. Well, I imagine so. New York's usually pretty chilly this time of year. Pun intended. I can't remember what the beach looks like right now. I remember what the beach looked like in Los Angeles, and I've only been there once. No, I've been there twice. Once by myself. I had a 8-hour layover on a trip to Vegas. I intentionally had an 8-hour layover so I could go to the beach. That was very nice. And then I did it again with my sister. It was awesome. But I do remember pretty much the East and West Coast. I had one trip that I made where I flew late at night, I should say, going into Miami. Saw the sunrise there. And then on the same day, I saw the sunset on the other beach. That was a pretty great trip. Yeah, it's brutal right here right now. Speaking of the Cards, does a Newt bar taste like a Snickers? That's a good one, D-Rod. Christopher, spring training is right around the corner. Baseball fans, hit the like button. Just found this channel about 2 weeks ago. Does a great job of being unbiased as possible, being a Rangers fan. Thank you for that, Christopher. I really do appreciate that. Got about 35 likes. Let's see if we can bump that number up a little bit. Got about, well, we already passed our 40-minute threshold, so missed our goal. Let's see if we can bump it up, though, a little bit. D-Rod, Minter would be a good addition to any team. He's done well the last few years. Yes, he would. Does Martin mean no Yates for Texas? I think Fenstermacher was kind of making a comment that they don't necessarily need to, break the bank for a closer. I think they still will add a proven closer back there. I don't necessarily buy the lip service that he gave to their less of a need now for a relief option. Sure, they've done major additions to that bullpen, but none of them are of the closer level. Martin gives them a really good 8th inning option. Garcia could be a guy that could be in that 8th inning option as well. Spores could be a 9th inning option, but he's going to be out for 2 months. Church missed the majority of last year, but he could be a future closer as well. And they've got a couple of other guys down there in Double-A that could be used in that bullpen this year as well. But you want a proven option back there at the start of the year if you're trying to win a World Series. I don't think they're going to enter the season with having an unproven option there in that ninth inning role. I would be surprised if that was it for the Rangers' additions in their bullpen. Jay Snow, the Red Sox are supposedly in on everyone. We'll see if they actually spend a lot. That's kind of been the issue for the Red Sox. They said they were going to go, quote-unquote, full throttle this offseason. And while they've done some very nice additions, bringing in 3 different starting pitchers, Garrett Crochet, that win the bidding for him. They bring in Walker Buehler, 1-year deal, 2-year deal for Patrick Sandoval, 1-year deal for Aroldis Chapman. But the one thing they need offensively is another big bat in that lineup. Bregman, I think, would be a great fit for them. I don't think they need an outfielder. I think their outfield is pretty much set. I think they'd like to get off of Yoshida's deal, but I don't think that's overly likely unless they attach a guy like Casas to it, which could happen with a team like the Seattle Mariners if they get Luis Castillo back and Bregman ends up going to the Red Sox. But I think that's a little bit more unlikely at this point, and the Red Sox, to me, still haven't really spent or gone, quote-unquote, full throttle from a financials perspective. So your comment there, if they actually spend a lot, right on the nose there, my friend. Welcome back, Cubby. Appreciate you joining us once again. Chuck, Brian Matusz is famous in O's land for striking out David Ortiz 13 times and 29 at-bats. That's a pretty good track record. Tough to see his passing at 37 today. Jason, what happened with Texas and their TV deal? Still waiting for the announcement on that one. I have yet to see anything as far as what they're doing there. It sounds like it was going to be released today. I have yet to see any news about it, though. The DLLS podcast, anyway, was stating that the Rangers had some type of a news conference set to release their TV deal, or as far as what their TV deal is going to look like. I have yet to see anything about it. But as soon as I know, I will relay that to those of you who are Rangers fans. Polanco shot the Yankees. Should leave that alone. Polanco's shot. The Yankees should leave that alone. Okay, I get your comment now. I would agree Polanco's right now best for probably mentorship at this point. Maybe a stopgap option if you have somebody injured. But if you're asking him to be your solution for any position at this point, I think you're missing the boat. And I would go after pretty much anybody else with more upside at this point. I think you know what the floor is with Polanco, but I think we very much know what the ceiling is for a player of his caliber at this point. The Giants are signing senior citizens. Is he available? Funny. Deep in the heart of Texas, all right. Jason, I don't know what the Giants are doing there, supposedly in on all big free agents, but never closed the deal. Well, that was the issue under Farhan Zaidi. This is the first year with Buster Posey. That's kind of the difference, though, is with Buster Posey at the helm, they went out there and got their guy before they even get to the winter meetings in Willy Adames, 7 for 182. Now, they were the favorites to bring in Corbin Burns. I think they would have gotten that one done if he didn't want to play closer to home in Arizona and sought out a deal with the Diamondbacks himself. But I think they would have gotten that deal done. I think the addition of Justin Verlander is more of proving a point to other free agents for future off seasons that this is no longer your good old Giants. Hey, we'll take a 1-year deal and hope to rebuild our value. No, you're convincing a player in Justin Verlander to finish his career with your team because you think you have a chance to win. So whether you think that's overly accurate or not, whether you think they really have a chance to win a wild card, I think this offseason has really done a nice job of changing the narrative around the Giants more than anything else, and they will be spending big next offseason along with the Washington Nationals. Blue Jays are going to have plenty of money to spend. We'll see if they decide to keep their payroll low while they enter a quote-unquote rebuild phase. And a little bit of an update for those of you who are Blue Jays fans. I've been kind of reading up on the situation there in Toronto as far as the ownership group there in the front office. They seem, spellbound with Shapiro anyway, in that front office, and Ross Atkins to a lesser extent. It sounds like even if they miss the playoffs this year, they may still keep that ownership or that front office around. So maybe the stability is a little bit overstated on the national media standpoint. So does this necessarily mean that they're going to have a bright future? No, but it does mean that there might be more stability than originally thought. But you look at that roster, where's the stability coming from the 26 guys that are going to make up that roster? That's the bigger question there with your two big cogs in Vladdy and Bo Bichette, both expected to hit free agency and possibly leave in free agency in less than a year from now. All right, see if we can catch up a little bit here. So if I go fast here, I do apologize. Cubs are around 50 million under the luxury tax. Will they spend? They will, but they're not going to spend a whole lot. I don't think they'll spend anywhere near that 50 million. I think we're probably looking at maybe a $30 million max cap on that one, and that would be only if they brought in a guy like Alex Bregman. I think if they don't bring in Bregman, I think it'll be closer to 20 million that they end up spending. They'll split it between a starting pitcher and a reliever. Cowboys Nation, and waiting until the deadline always costs double when it's pitching. If the O's wait again, Elias will empty our farm system for Severino. Well, Severino, I think, is going to stay with the A's. I don't think he has positive trade value, but I get your overriding point there is that he doesn't necessarily get great returns on his investments. I would like to see him bring in a guy like Castillo or a Pablo Lopez or Dylan Cease, pretty much anybody at this point to give them a legitimate shot at a World Series this year. Bigger question, though, is what does their team look like long term if they are unable to sign Dylan Cease or whoever they bring in that has 1 year left until free agency? That's been their track record, but at a certain point, they're going to have to spend, and I would have done it this offseason because it would have been a better formula for you to be able to retain your long-term guys, your Hendersons of the world, your Holidays of the world, because you'd have signed them because you'd have signed Burns a year earlier, and they would have hit free agency, and that money would have come off the books a year earlier. So you might have been able to afford it while those guys are a year younger than having to wait another offseason before you spend in free agency. But they brought in Morton, they brought in Sugano, but they still need a number one at the head of that rotation. Appreciate you guys joining us. Make sure you guys hit that like and subscribe. Got about 70 of you guys with us right now. Make sure you guys join us as we're going to break down all the latest from MLB's Hot Stove every single night. Around 9 o'clock, we will be live. Today we started a little bit earlier, had some breaking news with Justin Verlander, 1 year, $15 million to the Giants. So good get there for the Giants. He is a little bit washed, though. I think this is going to be his final season. I don't think the Giants are going to make the playoffs, but I think this does what the Giants were hoping it will do, and that's turn the page on the Farhan Zaidi era more than anything else. The Rogers trade still wakes me up at night. Newt Bar is the future doctor. I don't know about that one. I think Newt Bar is probably going to stay where he's at the moment. Yankees have to get a bat. I think they still need an impact bat. So the impact bat I think they're going to get is going to happen at the deadline where they're going to get a team to either A, eat a lot of the salary of him, or B, find somebody to take on Stroman's deal and then find the bat that way. ZCQ Boozy, I'm going to just call you Z. Appreciate you joining us. First time I think I've seen you in our chat. Braves need someone. I would agree there. It sounds like the Braves, though, are waiting here, trying to wait out the market and try to get some deals right before spring training. So they may end up getting a veteran, on a 1 year deal, like a Charlie Morton. 110 is what they were hoping to get Morton for if they missed on their other top free agent targets. I think Jack Flaherty has a chance to go there if they decide to go a little bit bigger in free agency. But it sounds like they're trying to wait and try to save them as much money as they can. They've done a nice job saving a little bit of money, offloading the deal of Jorge Soler. But now they need to go out there and spend a little bit. They have some good options for some starting pitching, but they're a little bit thin in that category. I think they could use a starting pitcher. I think they could use another couple of relievers. And they need a corner outfielder to kind of take over for Acuna in the beginning of the year and then be comfortable being moved to the fourth outfielder role once Acuna's back and healthy for the 162. Jason, I love Arizona. It's lit out there. Arizona's a fun place to be. Nice in the winter. All right. Let's see here. Good night, like Braves need to sign Haesung Kim. I would like that signing for them. I think that would give them some versatile options in their infield. I'm not sure how much that would do for their outfield mix. I think he could play a little bit of outfield if needed, but I think they'll go a different direction than him. Verlander, I think Roki will surprise and pick the Rangers. Bochy, Chris Young, Skip Schumacher are great baseball guys. No argument there. Those three guys are great baseball guys. In fact, Bochy and Schumacher actually have, both of those guys are on a manager's retreat every year that goes up to, I believe, Montana. Goes on a little bit of a hunting trip up there. And, kind of see the relationship there, how it developed even before Schumacher became a member of the Texas Rangers front office. He is a special advisor, I believe, to GM Chris Young. I think he's the manager in waiting right now on the roster because I think Will Venable was that guy, but he couldn't wait around any longer. He jumped at the White Sox opportunity. I think if Bochy decides to leave after this year, Schumacher will be the manager of the Rangers opening day in 2026. But we'll see. Bochy, you remember his tenure with the Giants, win one, lose one, win one, lose one, win one. The Rangers are hoping for that he wins, kind of continues that trend with the Rangers, and wins another one this year. See, the Braves have a ton of talent coming back from the DL. They do, or I guess it's an IL now, the injured list. It used to be the DL anyway, but the injured list anyway. They do have some talent coming back, but I think they still lack a little bit there. Strider's going to miss the beginning of the season, I believe, as well. They need some pitching. They're relying on a lot of young guys at the back end of that rotation that haven't had great starts to their seasons the last couple of years. Grant Holmes has a lot of inexperience. Ian Anderson up and down, but top prospect that should at this point be able to hold it down. But I still think they need to add another starting pitcher. We speculated the idea of Max Scherzer being a one-year option for them. Might be a little rich there, but maybe they go a little bit more expensive long-term deal anyway and bring in a Jack Flaherty. Jason, I think Tucker's definitely getting to free agency. I would agree there. I think Tucker, is absolutely going to go to free agency. He told the Astros as much, and the Cubs going all in on 2025. We're willing to give up the future of Cam Smith and Isaac Paredes, who was the prize at the trade deadline. So a little bit surprising that the Cubs decided to jump out there, but they got the job done. Now they just have to go out there, win the division, and make a run at making a World Series. I think it's very unlikely. I think it's unlikely that they win the division. I think the Brewers are still the best, but we've seen the Reds make some additions. The Pirates are looking to make some more offensive upgrades. I think it's a 4-team race. The Cardinals going through a rebuild this year. I think they don't really have a realistic chance to win right now. Welcome back, VPC ZX. Appreciate you joining us right now. It is negative 28 degrees Celsius in Canada right now. Brr! That's a little cold, my friend. Negative 28, where is that at? That's what I'm wondering. Where specifically in Canada? We have Nacho Alvarez Jr., but that's it. Okay. Where in Canada? Yes, that's kind of my question as well. Hank, I saw the Texas traded Owen White. Now I can dump his cards. We'll see. I wouldn't dump his cards. I think he actually has a chance to break through with the Reds, either in a bullpen role or in a number 5 starter role if they don't bring in Lance Lynn and or a guy like Kyle Gibson. I think they're probably going to get one of those guys. But Owen White, I still think has a legitimate future there with the Reds. I would wait for another, 6 months. That'll be through the, probably the trade deadline and just see where they're at with the Reds. If he's broken through by then, hey, you'll want to hold on to him even longer. If he hasn't, then I'd probably offload him before they decrease value any further. Let's see here. Holly, Rangers pitchers and catchers report the 12th. That's about a month away. 1 month and 5 days. That's what I'm waiting for. George, welcome in. Appreciate you joining us for the first time. What do you think of Wyatt Langford for the Rangers? I'm very high on Wyatt Langford. I think he's going to have a massive year. Honestly, I think Corey Seager's probably going to be the most valuable Ranger offensively. I think he's going to have a bounce-back year. But I think the best offensive weapon the Rangers are going to have outside of Seager is going to be Wyatt Langford. And I think he's going to be all over the field. Defensively, speed on the bases, power. I think he's going to bring contact this year. I think the first half of the year, he really struggled to find his power stroke, a thing he had never really struggled with in his entire career. He really found it in September, a slug percentage of 600, I believe. His OPS was over 1,000 in September alone. I think it was over 1,100 in September alone. He really clicked in September. So I'm thinking, we're probably talking, beginnings of, when will Wyatt Langford become an MVP, in his future. So I think that's the ending point of the season for Wyatt Langford, and then we see him be in discussion for MVP as soon as, say, 27, 28. But I'm seeing, really big things for Wyatt Langford this year. I am hopeful for Evan Carter, but he's got to show me he's healthy and can handle left-handed pitching before I put him on anywhere close to a level like Wyatt Langford. Paul, I hope the Red Sox trade Casas. Honestly, I'm hoping so as well, because that would mean they would have brought in Alex Bregman. I think he would be a great bat for them. They moved Devers over to first base, so at least they're going to have to convince him to do so. But I think he would be a real jolt in the arm for such a good young team that should be able to push them over the top and get them a wild card at bare minimum. I think they'd have a chance to win the division as well if they brought in Bregman and moved on from Casas. Who else wanted Verlander? A few other veteran teams out there. The Baltimore Orioles had kicked the tires on him. The Houston Astros had been mentioned as well. Cincinnati Reds were mentioned once or twice. Tigers as well. The Nationals at one point were mentioned. I don't think that was a legitimate one, though. And the Atlanta Braves. But ultimately goes to the San Francisco Giants. 1 year, $15 million. Who is Robbie Hyde? I honestly don't know. Audrey, welcome in. Appreciate you joining us. I think that's the first time I've seen you in our chat. Appreciate you joining us. Make sure you guys hit that like and subscribe if you are new here. With the addition of Lex, do you see the Reds possibly trading Matt McLain or Marte? McLain, no. I think he's going to have a big season with the Reds this year. As far as Marte, I think his value's really plummeted, at least in the eyes of the Reds front office over the last year or so with the suspension issues, etc. I still think he has value as far as a prospect, maybe even a trade back to Seattle could be in the offing there. I think Castillo to help out that Reds rotation that is looking for one more starter there. Meanwhile, Marte goes over back to the Mariners in addition to a couple other pieces. Probably get that deal done. They get a couple of bats there. Is that exactly what the Mariners need right now? No. I think they're looking for more proven alternatives in their offense right now to help supplement their lineup around Julio Rodriguez because they don't really have a lot of established major league talent. But trading a guy like Castillo back to the Reds could make some sense if they're looking to go younger. So we'll see what they decide to do. But I think the Reds are going to hold on to McLain. Pitcher, Sox drafted, Jay Snow, Robbie Hyde. Now you got me curious. $19.26. I don't think this is who you're talking about. I have no idea who that is, my friend. All right, let's see if we can catch up a little bit here. Welcome back, Jonathan. Welcome in, Justin. John, welcome in. Let's see here. Cowboys Nation, I hope we can extend some guys. Westy, Adley. Let's see here. Westy, Adley, Cowser while he's still young before he really breaks out. Gunner, but hard to see with Boris. Honestly, if you're Orioles, you got to do what the Braves did with their young guys. Get them for 1 year up at the big league level. They break through. You get those guys and you take the risk and sign them long term. And if it doesn't work out, at least you've got the deal signed, and so it's not going to hit you like it would if they went all the way to free agency, and then you lose them in free agency for nothing. So if they turn into something, you really have a good young nucleus that you've built around. If it doesn't work out, then you're stuck with some contracts that ultimately are going to hamstring you for a few years. So when you're a smaller market team, you have to take risks like that. The Braves are in a little bit better financial situation than the Orioles are as far as payroll. But I could see the wisdom in them trying to get the extensions done with those young guys. Was it Cowser that was in that Rookie of the Year race that played so well? I think it was. I would be trying to target him right now and try to get an extension done with him this offseason before we get to spring training and just see what I can get. Jason, I live in Province, Ontario. Okay. I'll have to look that one up here in just a moment. John, hey to all you folks, who's the highest sought after free agent or trade target for the Rangers? Right now, I think free agent target probably be Roki Sasaki. I think on the closer market, I think it's still Kirby Yates. If it's not Kirby Yates, David Robertson makes sense, bringing him back. And then trade Ryan Helsley, but there's going to be a healthy amount of teams in on his market. Maybe we see a surprise trade with the Padres like we speculated on the other day, but I don't see a way that the Padres would be welcome to do that unless they're getting some type of relief help from the free agent market, which I think is unlikely given their ownership issues right now. I'm not sure how much additional funds they would have to be able to bring in some bullpen help for them. There are some other relief options available via trade. I saw a couple of fan articles posted where they, recommended Emmanuel Clase back to Texas. He's on an incredibly team-friendly deal right now. The best closer in the game right now, unquestionably. I don't think there's a trade that makes sense for both sides. I think the Rangers would have to give up too much. They would say no, and I think as much as the Rangers might be willing to give up, or even above that point, I think the Guardians would say no as well. But as far as a trade target, I would say Helsley of the Cardinals probably makes the most sense. I'd love Ryan Presley of the Astros, but I don't think the Astros would deal him to the in-division rival Texas Rangers. What type of impact bat you think the Yankees will target at the deadline? They need an infielder before the season starts. I think before the season starts, they'll go a little bit cheaper. Jose Iglesias, somebody along those lines. Maybe they get Luis Ariz. Maybe the surprise is there. But as far as an impact bat, somebody at the caliber of a Vlad Guerrero Jr., somebody who's a year away, who's about to hit free agency, try to get him right before then and just see if they can replace Juan Soto's production in October with that impact bat. But that would be one name I would like to see. You did live in Kazakhstan, lived in the mountains there. I'm used to the cold. Yeah, I'd say that's a pretty cold place to live. Alrighty, Justin, what other moves do you see LA making? The Dodgers, I would see the Dodgers bringing in a reliever. Tanner Scott's name keeps popping up there as far as them being a favorite. I think the contract probably be heavily deferred like it always is with the Dodgers these days. Mets are definitely sticking their nose in there, seeing if they can get a deal done. Same thing with the Yankees. They're looking to get him as a eighth inning setup guy. He's looking for around $20 million a season. He may actually get closer than we originally thought. I thought he was going to get probably 15, 16, 17 at best. I think his market probably right now is around $18 million. That's a hefty sum for an eighth inning setup guy in front of a $20 million closer in Edwin Diaz, which was what the Mets would have. Very interesting way of building out a bullpen, especially when you're not willing to spend on starting pitching for at least long-term contracts there. So kind of an interesting way to build a ball club there. Something to keep an eye on if the Mets do to get that one across the finish line. D-Rod, I've read that Winnipeg is the coldest populated city in North America. Would make sense. Cowboys Nation, what is the contract on Lodolo? Surprised the Reds never got interest in moving him, being inconsistent. I think he's led the league in hit batters since becoming a starter. Solid stuff when healthy. Let's look that up. You make me curious there. So the Reds, Lodolo. Three years left, making next to nothing. He has pretty good value. Reds could get something decent for him, but I would hold on to him, honestly. They need starting pitching. They don't need to offload deals yet. They're still trying to get guys to be able to establish themselves as healthy, reliable, innings-eating starting pitchers. Green and Abbott, as good as they've presented themselves to be, haven't shown that yet. It's just inconsistent. Yes, apparently $15 million is the going rate for pitchers over 40. I think $15 million for a one-year deal is what it's looking like right now. Remember, Alex Cobb got that deal. Morton got that deal. Verlander got that deal. I'm wondering if we see Scherzer get a similar deal as well. But I think he probably gets a little bit more than Verlander because he was better than Verlander was last year. Verlander looks washed. Meanwhile, Scherzer is bitten by the injury bug, yes, but when healthy is still a productive member of a rotation. It's just a matter of how many bullets he has left in that arm. Let's see here. Negative 28 degrees. Negative 18 degrees Fahrenheit. That doesn't sound right. John, my Soviet ancestors gone, though much worse, up to negative 25 to negative 43 Celsius. Yeah, that's pretty damn cold. Just believe in the mountains, and they keep you warm. I like that one. Robbie Hyde has a YouTube channel focused on baseball, too. I have not seen his YouTube channel. I guess I'll have to check that one out. Jonathan, you're my favorite signing or trade so far this hot stove season. Well, thank you, I suppose. If I had to, pick, I'm guessing you're asking a question there, Jonathan. Who's my favorite signing or trade so far? Signing? It's a good question. I could go something obvious like Juan Soto to the Mets because it, really helps them, in the NL East. That it shakes things up as far as free agency, those kinds of things. I'm going to go off the board a little bit here. Favorite signing so far in free agency? Christian Walker to the Houston Astros. I just think he's exactly what that team has needed for the last 3 years. Solves a big hole. Now, they still have another hole after they traded away Kyle Tucker because they need to fill in 2 other holes for him now leaving and for Bregman leaving in free agency. They still need an outfielder as far as I'm concerned, but Christian Walker is probably my favorite signing of the offseason. Another one, just to kind of give you a different one. Let's go with Diamondbacks getting Burns, taking advantage of the market, realizing the opportunity presenting itself and not, looking at it going, hey, we weren't looking for a starter. Thank you for your interest, Corbin Burns, but take it elsewhere. But saying, hey, Corbin Burns wants to come here. Let's talk to him, get a deal done, and look forward in free agency to next year when we have Gallen a free agent, Kelly a free agent, Montgomery a free agent. Now we've already got ourselves one starting pitcher for the future, And if he does leave after 2 years because of the opt out, we'll at least have the opportunity to have him for one more season. And be able to lose one of the guys that we have on our starting rotation right now, and not have to overpay to one of those guys. So I like that signing for them. An underrated signing, I would say. I don't know. I got a feeling about the Hobie Milner signing for the Rangers. I think he's going to be a sneaky good signing, kind of like the way Kirby Yates was this past season. Do I think he's going to be the closer on the Rangers? No, but I think he could very well end the season as their setup guy. I think he could recapture some of what the success he had was with the Milwaukee Brewers. I kind of like that signing there. Another one is Walker Buehler from the Boston Red Sox. Love that signing. I think that's really going to help out that rotation, especially when they get close to a pennant race. His game is going to elevate. His intensity is going to show on that pitching staff, and I think that's going to be infectious for that team. So I just think they need one more piece on the hitting side to do the same kind of a thing. As far as a trade, my favorite one, easily Nathaniel Lowe. Love the deal. Offloaded about $11 million in salary. They get back a controllable reliever. Love the deal overall. Another trade besides my Rangers anyway, I would say probably the Houston Astros again. Their return that they got for Kyle Tucker. They did a really great job with both of those moves. The Christian Walker signing and the trade of Kyle Tucker. They really lengthen out their window of contention here for at least another couple of years. And when those deals come up and Walker leaves in free agency, they'll have money to spend in free agency and fill that hole again. So I think they're going to remain competitive in a winnable AL West, and we'll see what happens. But I like what they've done so far, but they aren't done. It's not a finished product. They still need to add some more pieces as well. Class A got lit up in the playoffs. Yeah, playoffs are a different animal, though. Some years, one reliever's great. Another year, they're poor. Some guys rise to the occasion. Others shrink. I think it's a little bit of a small sample size to say, he got lit up in the playoffs, yes. But we're talking about a relief pitcher who probably pitches, anywhere between 60 to 80 on the high end, 90 innings nowadays. I just think he needs more time in the playoffs before we worry about their long-term future being able to handle the playoffs. Mets close to deal with Verdugo. I would love to see that one. I think he'd be a good Marte replacement. Move on from Marte, maybe trading him back to the Pirates and be able to eat the majority of that deal. I think that would be a good signing and then trading of Marte. But Verdugo, I heard, was also had interest from the Pittsburgh Pirates, and I think the Toronto Blue Jays had also kicked the tires on Verdugo as well. Let's go ahead and head over to X and just see if it was announced there, St. Vintage. Brian Matusz tribute there. I do not see anything as far as the under the radar-ness, or that they're close on a deal there. If you could send us the link there, St. Vintage, I'd love to see it. Not doubting you, but I am curious as far as where the information's coming from. Jason, the Yankees won't make a big trade like that at the deadline. Cashman doesn't make big deadline trades like that. Well, he did for Joey Gallo. I think that was a deadline deal. That was 4 middle prospects who ultimately all have made it to the show outside of Trevor Hauver, who's at AAA right now for the Rangers. That was a big deal back then. I'm not saying he's going to do it every year, but I think this is a year where they just made it to the World Series. It's been, since 2009 since they won a World Series? That's a long time for Yankees fans, and I think he's starting to feel the pressure. We knew that was going to be the case when they were trying to bring back Aaron Judge. I think he earned himself a bit of a reprieve for about 2 years. The trade of Juan Soto was seen as a risk at the time because, hey, what happens if he leaves in free agency? Well, not only did he leave in free agency, he left for the crosstown rival Mets. Now you're going to have to show that you're able to, try to go even better, bigger than what you just did with Juan Soto, and be able to beat the Mets, at least for the back pages of the New York Post, New York Times, etc. And we'll see what they can do, but I don't know. I still think they're primed to make a big trade. I think Guerrero would be a great addition at the deadline and really help out their chances to mitigate the losses of Soto. Yankees aren't going to be able to replace Soto last year. We got 0 production from first and left field. If they just have a deeper lineup, they'll be okay. They were so top-heavy last year. I'll agree they were top-heavy. I've made this point several times. They're a better team overall, for the 162. My question is not about the 162. I think they'll have a great roster. I think they very likely, very well will win the division along with the Orioles. I think those are 1-2 with the Red Sox firmly in third place right now. Rays 4, Blue Jays 5. But I think there's still a need for an impact bat in that lineup because once you get to October, Juan Soto really elevated his level of game. Do we expect the same out of Devin Williams, Goldschmidt, Bellinger? Those are all lesser players, and they're all going to have to rise to the occasion. So we shall see. Welcome back, Mark. I appreciate you joining us once again. Always good to see you in our chat. Thank you for joining us again. Jay Snow, wow, Mets love ex-Yankees. They do. We remember the whole Darryl Strawberry back and forth back then. I remember that one when I was a kid. Let's see here. Justin, Yankees probably have PTSD from the Matusz deal. Yanks probably have PTSD from the Matusz deal. The Chisholm deal was great, though. Matusz isn't great, but he did not work out great for the Yankees at all. I would agree there. He had a nice rebound season, I believe, with the Reds last year. Got a nice 2-year deal with the Mets this year. I like that signing for them. I don't think he's a great player, but I do think he's a solid number 2, number 3 option in that rotation. I think he's probably more of a number 3 behind Sean Manaea. I think Manaea really elevated himself last year, changed his arm slot, and really found himself as a pitcher last year. And we'll see if he continues to ascend. But Montas, I think, is at least a solid number 3, maybe a number 4 in that rotation. Didn't like the Montas trade at the time. I don't think anybody did from the Yankees. I didn't understand the trade or at least the reasons why they made it. I get Oakland. They held on to him as long as they possibly could, got their most value that they could out of him, and then got a good return anyway in a trade for Montas. Now, has the pieces worked out for either club? No. Robbie Hyde is good content. I'll have to check it out. Justin, fave signings, Blake Snell to LA. That is up there for me as well because I don't think anybody was expecting Snell to go to the Dodgers. I think everybody was expecting the Orioles to be the team that would be in there for him. But when you see the numbers that he got from LA, there was no way the Orioles were going to that level. And you can understand why, even with the deferrals, he was willing to take that money. Freed to the Yankees, their first pivot after losing Juan Soto. Great signing for the Yankees. Quickly turned the narrative from, hey, we lost Juan Soto to, hey, how do we recover? Now that they brought in Max Fried and we lost Juan Soto. That was a good signing by the Yankees. And to move quickly in doing so, they were quickly and methodical about how they handled the loss of Juan Soto, getting Fried done, going into the trade market to try to bring in Kyle Tucker. That doesn't happen. They bring in Bellinger. They bring in Goldschmidt. They've been very busy this offseason. The trade for Devin Williams as well in that mix. Cowboys Nation, I think that the Fried deal, years-wise, will be a disaster unless you get one pennant, in my opinion. I don't think that'll be an issue. I think $27 million in today's baseball is very, very palatable, especially for a team like the Yankees. Say it goes bad. Say he blows out his arm and has to require a Tommy John, misses a whole year. Another year is basically rehab for him. He has a couple of decent years, blows his arm again. Even if, that were to happen, that's worst case scenario for Max Fried. I think I think you can probably book him for 150 innings for at least the next 3 to 5 years, somewhere in that mix. The deal is for 8 years, yes, but even if the deal goes sour and they can't use him at all in years 6, 7, and 8, I still don't think it's a complete albatross for the Yankees because they can afford to take on these salaries. They just seem to be unwilling to go above the Steve Cohen tax, and I think that's just a self-imposed thing. I think they could afford it. They have the Yes Network. They're one of the richest organizations in MLB. The most storied franchise in baseball history. I don't think money over $27 million is ultimately something they're going to really quibble with when it comes to trying to contend for a postseason, contend for a World Series, and try to win a World Series. I still think Fried is a good deal overall because I think the longer that deal was actually to space out the money, because say that instead of an 8-year deal, it was a 7-year deal for $218, then your AAV is a little over $30 million. So in order to lower the hit for the tax penalties, you make it an 8-year deal, tack on an extra $8 million. That makes it, roughly, what does that, $31 million a year? Or $27 million a year before, or after the deal anyway. By making an 8-year deal, by giving him that $8 million more, you save $3 million off of the total as far as the tax bill, which saves you the $3 million. So your tax, you're probably saving yourself, another $3 to $5 million there total? That doesn't sound like a lot today, but add that up every single year. That savings adds up and allows you to go after other talent in free agency by allowing that deal to be spaced out just a little bit. John, Robbie Hyde is about 46,000 subscribers. That's a lot. Let's share Upside Sports Network to get to 50K. That would be awesome. I'd love to get up to that. So if you guys wouldn't mind, hit that like and subscribe. Thank you guys for the support. You guys are very encouraging. I love the support you guys give us, and I love just being able to talk baseball with you guys. It's a lot of fun. Really enjoy this type of format that we've developed here. Responding to your comments, keeping up with the news of the day, those kinds of things. Let's go ahead and update X and just see if anything else is happening at the moment. Nothing there, it looks like. Head over to MLB trade rumors. Nothing there. Again, the headlines of the day. Sadly, the passing of Brian Matusz at 37 years old for the Baltimore Orioles. Well wishes to his friends, family, to the Baltimore Orioles family and those who knew him. Tough to see a guy go so young at 37. Other news around baseball, Justin Verlander. 1 year, $15 million to the Giants. Marcus Stroman is being shot by the Yankees. We reported on that one last night. Brent Rooker, right after we went off the air, agreed to a 5-year extension that could be a 6-year extension with the A's. I wonder if he's really capped out as far as what he's going to be as a player there. But overall, a great signing for the A's. Locks him up long term, and he's going to remain a member of the A's probably for the remainder of that deal. The deal is very tradable, though, as well. Not a big number on it, so if he does continue to ascend and really increase his value, maybe somebody else will take the risk on him. Otherwise, he'll probably be there on that roster when they make their official move to Vegas. Never heard of the Hyde guy. Is he related to Brendan Hyde? That was kind of my thought there, as Brendan Hyde was the first guy that popped into my head. Under radar is Joey Manassas to the Mets on a minor league deal. I do like that one. Andy Martino just mentioned it on SNY TV. Okay. Thank you, St. Vintage. Appreciate that. That they're closing in on a deal for Alex Verdugo, in case you guys are wondering what he's referencing there. I think he'd be a good get for them. They need to continue to improve that lineup. I think the biggest piece they need to do right now is to bring in Pete Alonso. If they don't get that deal done, I think that attention's going to turn to, how does this lineup develop around Juan Soto? Are they just going to spend and stop? Or are they going to continue to add pieces to supplement that lineup, to protect him in that lineup? Because right now, I'd say you have Lindor, and then you have Soto, and then who's going to be hitting behind Soto? That should be Pete Alonso's spot. We'll see if they get that one done. Jason, don't get me started on Joey Gallo. He was atrocious. I'm not a fan of Cashman. Okay, so I'm not going to defend Gallo too much. He was always high strikeout guy, but I will say New York absolutely did him no favors. The way they utilized him, the lack of how they deployed him really was more of my issue. I think New York was just too big of a market for him as well. Did not go well for Joey Gallo in any sense of the way at all. Now, since he's been out of there, he's been with the Dodgers, he's been with the Nationals, been with the Twins. Not exactly proven to be a solid player at the major league level. I still think he has at least one more major league season left in him somewhere. I think a team's going to give him a shot at least on a non-roster invitee to try to win the role out of spring training at first base or as a DH somewhere. That power does play, but he's never been great as far as translating that power on the field. With hitters, you never know. Something might click eventually. He's got that prodigious power, and you got to hope he eventually figures out how to utilize that power in a game and not strike out so much. But when he was with the Rangers, he was playing at an MVP level. The defense was there. Everything was all working for him. And ultimately, Gallo had a chance to sign with the Texas Rangers long term. There was an extension offer out there, as Justin points out here, 5 for $85. Before Texas ultimately, after that deal was declined, they said, all right, we're not going to be able to afford this salary because we're going into a little bit of a rebuild phase. Let's go ahead and ship him out, get a few prospects that we really like from the New York Yankees. Multiple of those guys went into their top 10 immediately. Rangers got a great return for Joey Gallo, and I think the Rangers got a big return for Joey Gallo, but the Yankees, I think, if they had to do over one trade, I think they would rather have Ezekiel Duran, Josh Smith, Glenn Otto, and Trevor Hauver back instead of having Joey Gallo for that stint they did. Alrighty. We don't have to fight for the back pages. It's not to disrespect the Mets, but they have to win a title before they can say they're taking the back pages. I mean, owners are fickle. I will say that much. You look at the Los Angeles Dodgers and the Los Angeles Angels, for instance. The Angels have struggled for years now to even make the playoffs. And you look at how the Dodgers are, seen as the model franchise right now in the MLB. The reason why Artie Moreno is trying to make a quote-unquote big splash in free agency, is because of the way the Dodgers have really gone about their business and absolutely dominated the Angels' headlines. They took their best player. I'm sure Artie Moreno's hearing about it from all of his friends whenever he goes and plays golf. Every single fan he passes in the street, I'm sure, mentions something about how they lost Ohtani, how they're nowhere as a franchise right now. I'm sure he's hearing every single bit of that. And that affects him. And so he's going to try to win the back pages there in LA and get some respectability back. So while the Yankees and Mets might not necessarily be the same as far as World Series victories, I'd say winning Juan Soto, the top player in free agency, when you're the New York Yankees, who have never really lost a free agent like this in their history, it says something about the team, about where their direction is going, about where Juan Soto wanted to play, about his connection with the team itself, and about the front office and ownership. Was it wise for Cashman to invest the resources that he did to bring in Juan Soto? Well, I think it was wise because it got them to a World Series. But was it wise to give up that much, or to not have some reassurance that an extension would be reached? Those are bigger questions that Hal Steinbrenner and Brian Cashman are going to have to answer to at some point. Because if this thing doesn't get to a World Series and win eventually, I think we're going to start seeing more calls for Brian Cashman's job once again. I was calling for it before we got to the Aaron Judge debacle, or at least the debacle with the Giants anyway, with the arson judge anyway. But if Cashman and Steinbrenner didn't get that one done, I think Cashman probably would have been out at the trade deadline the following year. Ultimately, they bring in Juan Soto, they get to the World Series, they don't win. They're trying to build a better team this year, but I think they're missing that one impact bat right now, and we'll see what they do at the deadline. Let's see here. The Yankees offered Soto more than enough. Listen, he went for literally every last dollar he could, but I think the Yankees need to build a more balanced lineup, and they could be better. No argument there. I think the Yankees will have a better team. I think they're going to be better overall than when they had Soto. The question is, are the Yankees a team that matters for the 162? Or are they a team that's trying to win in October? Right now, I still think they're a little bit worse off in October because they don't have that impact bat. I have my questions about the ability of that lineup to produce in a big moment. I have my questions about Devin Williams as a bullpen piece. That's why I still think they need to bring in another elite option as an eighth-inning guy in case Devin Williams does falter in the postseason. We saw how that bullpen fell apart in the postseason. Even when they had a decent bullpen for the first half of the year, it fell apart in the second half of the year, and especially in the postseason. Devin Williams should be the answer back there, but we've seen him have his struggles in the postseason as well. One guy who didn't struggle in the postseason, that was the guy you just lost in Juan Soto. So that's my question. Are the Yankees, built better for the 162, a better team as well in the postseason? We'll have to see it on the field before we really know the answer one way or the other. Alrighty, let's try to catch up on a few of these comments here. Let's see here. Justin, Texas then signed Seager and Simeon the following winter, and Gallo leaving allowed them to slot Garcia into right field. It did. They got lucky with Garcia as well as a waiver claim for them, or a DFA and then trade anyway from the Cardinals, if I remember correctly. Kind of like what the Rangers just did with Owen White. I think that's how it went. Maybe it was a straight waiver claim. I can't remember off the top of my head, but something very small. But the Rangers, utilized that savings that they got from Gallo and built up their farm system with the pieces that they got in return for him. And really, kind of that was the basis of the team that went and won a World Series in 23. Jay Snow, Hal Steinbrenner is not like his father. He don't care. I think he does care. I just think he's more reasonable, more measured in his approach than George ever was. I think George was more about, fire and brimstone, come hell or high water. I'm going to get this thing across the finish line. No matter however much it takes, I don't care. And there's a certain place in baseball for that. But he also didn't have a team like the Mets as far as a payroll structure to deal with, or the Dodgers. So George could do that, and really kind of cash in on whatever piece that he wanted in free agency. He could do that because he was the one team, he was the one owner willing to go above and beyond what anybody else was expected to pay in free agency for whatever piece he wanted to go out and get. Hal Steinbrenner does not have that same luxury. Teams like the Mets and Dodgers can go every penny as far as they can. So, do I think that he doesn't care? No, I think he absolutely cares about the team. Or otherwise, why would he try to bring back Aaron Judge? Why would he personally be so invested in the pursuit of Aaron Judge? Why didn't he just leave it to Brian Cashman if he didn't care? He obviously cares. So, I don't think that's the issue there. Justin, Soto and Boris were going to the highest bidder, and Cohen was not getting outbid by anybody for Soto. I would agree there. I think the Yankees were right there, bid for bid with the Mets. But at a certain point, you got to realize, Soto wanted to go to the Mets. I think we knew that when the news came out that at the trade deadline a couple years before, when he had rejected the deal from the Nationals for the $450 million or whatever the deal was, that the writing was on the wall that he was going to be traded. Well, the Mets were seen as the favorite before the Padres really jumped in there, and I think that's really when it got in his head that the Mets would be a great place to play. And while the season went well in New York with the Yankees, I think he was always looking to go to the Mets, and ultimately the Mets were willing to pay him the most as well. So, when you have lemons, you make lemonade. When you have lemons, the sugar, you have the pitcher, the water already sitting there. All you have to do is mix it and put it together at that point, and that's what the Mets and Soto really did. Can't really fault the Yankees there, but the wisdom of making the trade for Soto, I think you could question as far as the investment there without a guarantee that he would sign long term, which is again why I would have questioned the acquisition of Kyle Tucker if they had gotten that done. But overall, they got him to a World Series, which is where they were hoping to go and win it. Ultimately, they fell short of their goal. We'll see how this new version of the team does. I think they're a better overall team, but how will they perform in October is the big question. And frankly, the only question that matters for the Yankees is will they win in October? All right, let's try to catch up on a few of these comments. I think I've missed a few of these, so we'll see if I can catch up here. Let's see here. If I think Soto would have went to the A's if they paid him the most money, no, I don't think that's at all the case. I think he wanted to go to the Mets, and the A's were never going to spend that type of money. Replace Cohen with the owner of the A's and put the A's owner on the Mets, they'd be two different organizations. The Mets, wouldn't exist the way they are today without Cohen. The A's wouldn't exist the way they are today without Cohen. So I just think Cohen and the Mets organization, just kind of all came together just right. Kind of like my analogy when you have the pitcher, the water's already there, the sugar, you have the spoon to mix everything with, the lemons are already juiced and ready to go. All you have to do is put it together, and I think that's what really happened with how everything just fell into place for Juan Soto. Sometimes it just works out that way, and it also works out that way when you have all of the big market teams in there for him. The Red Sox, the Blue Jays, the Dodgers to a certain extent. The Phillies were mentioned at a time having interest as well. Then, of course, the two New York teams as well. So no shortage of interest, being so young and hitting free agency when he did. You see why the money was really there for him, and he ultimately goes to the place he wanted to go to. Greedy agent, yes, they work for the player, but persuasion is clear in most cases with Boras. Boras is a great agent, I will say that. Who hired who? Did Soto hire Boras, or did Boras hire Soto? The player hires the agent. It's not the other way around. Player hires the agent. So Soto hired Boras. Soto hired Boras, so he basically told you he was going to the highest bidder. Yes, I would say that was primarily his motivation for going with Boras, though. But I think the player still dictates where he wants to go in free agency. That's why we saw Blake Snell. Boras wanted to do him right, and so they made sure to get him signed earlier in free agency. The agent works for the player, and so if the player wants to get something done, while it's unlikely that a Boras guy signs an extension, it's not out of the question. We've seen a few Boras guys sign extensions, but it's very few and far between because Boras kind of has this standard pitch that he has with all free agents or all of his players that he represents. Hey, man, get yourself to free agency. I'll maximize your value. Don't sign an extension because that will decrease your overall value, which does decrease the dollars he makes as an agent on commission, etc. But he is a great agent. He does get top dollar, and you can see why Soto wanted to really drive the bidding up there, and ultimately he went to the team I think he wanted to go to anyway. We had Soto, and we were horrified. We were horrible for 6 weeks of the season last year. The Yankees weren't a perfect team. That's why this year I think they're going to be a better team for the 162. But again, my questions are about October. For sure, but you're misconstruing my point. Most argue it's all on the player, and it's not true unless it's a hometown deal, etc., wit, etc. Soto has always been about the money over anything else. I will agree to that to some extent, but I do think when the money was turned down by when he turned down the money by the Nationals, which I guess would be the first point in that chain of events, that his eyes were open to what the possibilities could be other places. Because the money wasn't going to work there with the Nationals immediately said, we're not going to go past this, fold up the camp, let's go ahead and talk trade. And so the Mets were seen as the favorite there, and then he thought, well, if I'm not going to be here in Washington, what else is out there for me? And I'm sure he got exposed to all different trade avenues. I'm sure all of us, just like this site here, will post ideas of, hey, what does the lineup look like with Soto if he goes to the Mets? Hey, what does the lineup look like if he goes to the Red Sox? Hey, what does the lineup look like if he goes to the Padres? Hey, what does it look like if he goes to the Yankees? And I'm sure Soto did the same thing. What does my name look like in this batting order? How would I look like in this uniform? How would we look as far as winning a World Series? I'm sure he thought about all of those things 2 years before he even got to free agency, 3 years even before he got to free agency. Heck, I'm pretty sure he thought about it when he was in the Little League. But yes, the players are allowed to make the most money they can. They're allowed to hire the agent that they'd like. They're allowed to go to the highest bidder. And both of those two goals can result in ending up in the same place. They aren't mutually exclusive. Just because the player wants to go to the Mets and the highest bidder is on another team, that's, sometimes how it works out, but it doesn't have to be every single time. I think he did want to go to the Mets. I think there was serious interest from all teams involved. I think there were serious bids from all involved. And I think the money just kept getting to the point where at a certain point the Yankees just realized he wants to go there. We're getting the same dollar back and forth, and he's not giving us any preferential treatment to our bid. So why should we continue to bid against the Steve Cohen Mets? Why are we continuing to go to a level that we're not willing or we're not comfortable really going past, where we're not willing to afford? And we still have other needs on this offseason that we need to address. We need to address our starting staff. We need to address our bullpen. We need to build out this lineup a little bit better. And so by losing Soto, they were able to build out their lineup a little bit better than if they had kept Juan Soto. So while one door closes, another one opens for the Yankees. One door closes for Soto in his past with the Yankees. Another one opens with his future there with the Mets. So overall, players get to choose their agent. They get to go to the highest bidder if they want to. They get to go to their preferred destination if they want to. Sometimes they're the same thing. So let's see if we can catch up on a few of these other comments here. I think I missed a few as well. Let me see if I can scroll up a minute. Soto hired Boris. We had Soto 6 weeks. Or super greedy. Jay Snow. Don't forget about the private suite and security. That was an interesting tale in the Soto sweepstakes about the private suite and the security issue with the mother at Yankee Stadium last year. That was an interesting drama there. Justin Soto has always been about the money. He showed you when he, from the start, when he hired Boris. I mean, that's why you hire an agent, to get you the best deal you can in free agency. Not just because you sign with Boris, but because you sign with an agent, period, is so that they can represent you in contract negotiations so the team doesn't take advantage of you. That's why you hire an agent. Is it, is he supposed to hire the worst agent out there to make a team-friendly deal out there? No, he's supposed to try to do the best for himself, and that's what he did, and that's what he looked after. I mean, if you were in his shoes, would you want the best agent in the sport? Absolutely. And Boris is the best agent in baseball. That's not up for debate. Once he won with the Nats, yes. I disagree that he wanted to be a Met. He wanted the most money. Both can be true. Both can be true at the same time. I do think he wanted the most money. That's why you hire an agent. That's why you get the best agent in the game. Playing in Korea, Samsung offered more. I don't think that would have happened. Let's see here. So if he was offered the most money, you think Soto would have turned it down for less money with the Mets? We won't know. That's not the universe we live in. I think he would have gone to a place that gave him the best offer out there, yes. I think that he wanted to go to the Mets. Do I think that he would have chosen the highest bidder over the Mets? Possibly, but he might have chosen the other way. We don't know. If Soto wanted a hometown discount, he could have hired a different agent and not Boris. Since when is it the player's responsibility to give a hometown discount to a team, especially in the New York Yankees? Since when have the Yankees deserved a hometown discount? That's my bigger question. They're supposed to be the big bad Yankees, the team that's supposed to be able to afford everybody. Just because they have competition now from the Mets and the Dodgers, supposed to feel sorry for them? No. They're the Yankees. They've never done hometown discounts. I mean, you look at their own homegrown players. They got a few players sometimes to give them a little bit of a deal. Because, hey, they want to be in a Yankees uniform. They want to play for the Yankees franchise. They want to have that Yankees pinstripe cap, the uniform and the cap. The player's supposed to look out for himself, not for the betterment of the team. That's what the front office is there for. That's what the owner's there for. It's not his job to do that. So, while there's some of the fan bases that lose their player in free agency, like who was the one that left? thinking of like DeAndre Jordan for the Dallas Mavericks the first time he was coming to Dallas. And then, he agreed to the deal, the 4-year max deal with the Dallas Mavericks. And then the Los Angeles Clippers teammates basically locked him in, literally put a chair underneath the door handle and not allow DeAndre Jordan to leave, with Chris Paul and Blake Griffin and Doc Rivers and company all talking to him, saying, hey man, you can't leave us. You should come back to the Clippers, blah, blah, blah. Did we fault him as Mavericks fans? Yes, we were a little hurt that he didn't choose us, but ultimately, he wasn't allowed to sign on the dotted line yet. And so that's what the verbal commitment period was. And so they shortened that period because of how long that period of time took. It allowed the Clippers to do something like that. But just because you lose a guy in free agency, the player's supposed to look out for themselves, period. First, foremost, if you lose a top player out there, it's tough. I'm not going to say it isn't, but at a certain point, the player's supposed to look out for his best interest, not the team's bottom line. Alrighty, let's see if we can catch up on a few other news items for today. Not the Yankees, the hometown discount, but would be the Mets. He had wanted to go there. I still think he wanted to go to the Mets either way. Like I said, we don't know if somebody other team had offered him more money. Say if the Yankees had offered him the same deal exactly, maybe even more, given him the opt out with the option to make the deal even higher to $55 million per season. If they had given him the same deal, would he have accepted it from the Yankees? I doubt it, honestly, because I think he'd prefer the Mets. But say he preferred the Yankees, and the Yankees had that deal on the table, then maybe he'd still be in a Yankees uniform. But we'll never know. That's a utopia. We're not in a utopia. That's a different universe. Blah, blah, blah. All right. Let's check up on a few other headlines, see if anything else is happening before we call it an evening. I'm still starving. I haven't even had dinner yet. Padres, Luis Patino. Ooh, that's returning him back to the West Coast there. Minor league deal for them. Not a bad addition to the Padres, especially if they're looking to shake up their roster at the major league level. Getting some insurance there. Alrighty. Appreciate you guys joining us tonight. Make sure you guys hit that like and subscribe. Had a lot of fun with you guys today. Verlander did go to the San Francisco Giants today, Steven. 1 year, $15 million. I do think he's a little bit washed at this point. I think it's going to be a farewell tour. I think once he gets to spring training and realizes, hey, I don't necessarily have my fastball anymore, my location is off. I think by the beginning or end of May, I think he'll announce it and say, hey, guys, this will be my final year. Let me have my tour around baseball and get all the thank yous, the rocking chair, like Chipper Jones got, all those kinds of rewards, and just let baseball celebrate him and his career. I think that's what we're going to see from Justin Verlander. As far as for the Giants, I love the signing for them. It's a 1-year deal. They get to save money for 2026 in their pursuit of Kyle Tucker, Vlad Guerrero, and whoever else might be a free agent next year. But the bigger story for the Giants is not only do they save the money, they improve their rotation this year, but now the Giants also kind of turn the page entirely from Farhan's 80. No longer are they a destination where, hey, you missed out on your top target, so why don't you just sign here for 1 year with an option? So if you blow out your arm this year, we'll go ahead and pay you for 2 years. But hey, if you have a great year, you can leave after a year and go to your preferred destination and get your mega contract that you were hoping to get this time around. That's what happened over and over and over again after they missed on Machado, they missed on Harper, they missed on Correa, they missed on Bogarts, they missed on Judge, and on and on and on that list go. But now they bring in Willie Adames with a changing of the guard at the front office with Buster Posey coming in. They get their guy before the winter meeting, 7 for 182 for Willie Adames, and now I think this removes the last vestiges of the Farhan Zaidi era with the Giants. I think they're going to have a new era going forward. As far as Verlander, he's going to be in a pitcher-friendly park, so if he has a chance to resurrect his career, that's a good ballpark for it to happen. But honestly, I just think he doesn't have it anymore. And I think by May, somewhere beginning of May, end of May, it'll basically be announced he will be in his final season this year, if not before then. Lucas, appreciate you joining us once again. Cubby, welcome back. Let's try to catch up on a few of these comments. Almost as spending money is odd, doesn't feel real. Cubby, safe to assume Flaherty's agent is waiting for Roki to sign to increase Flaherty's demand? Yes, I would agree on that one. But I don't think they're mutually exclusive. If he gets an offer that he likes, I think he could sign before the 15th. Remember, Roki Sasaki is not going to be signing until after the 15th of January. Between the 15th and the 23rd is when the new international bonus pool money will open up. and when his posting window will close. So somewhere in that 8-day window is when he will sign. Steven, got it, no chance for a 3 to 4 ERA per 9, one bad year in 20 seasons, 3.1 to 3.3 ERA in 23 between the Mets and Astros. I just look at the year that he had last year. The life was just gone off of his fastball. The ability to locate really struggled. He had an 8 ERA before the injury that he had last year. He pitched 33 innings of that. Missed about a little bit of time as well, and then came back and was able to get his ERA back to around 5. I think a good year for Verlander this year is probably in the 4s. I think the days of him getting into the 3s are basically gone. I really hope for Verlander it stays in the 4s in his final season, or at least what I hope will be his final season. But I think the days of Verlander getting a sub-4 ERA are gone. Cowboys, he said something about Kate wheeling him to the bullpen in a wheelchair. That's funny. I did not hear that one, but that's pretty funny. Steven, best park to pitch in. Don't forget, you're all out on Verlander, huh? Yes, I am all out. I think he's done. I think he's washed. I think if you had to put a face on Aaron Rodgers in baseball, that would be Justin Verlander. Aaron Rodgers is about the most washed player currently in football, even though his stats don't look terrible this year. He absolutely is not a winning player anymore. I think Verlander is very much that type of player in baseball right now. I think he's done. New president of baseball operations hit on Adames. I do like the Adames signing. Now they land a pitcher of generation in Verlander. Pitcher of his generation. His generation was before now. Not now, but before now. So before, good pitcher, great pitcher, Hall of Fame pitcher. Now, not Hall of Fame pitcher, good pitcher. When right, when things are going his way, when he's healthy, when his command is there, when he's in a good pitcher-friendly ballpark, and he's going to have that this year, but I don't think he's going to be very healthy. So like I said, Verlander of the past is not what you're getting this year. You're not getting what's on the back of the baseball card. You're not getting Cy Young Verlander. You're getting an ERA probably north of 4. Best case you're hoping for is a 4.1, 4.2 ERA this year, I would imagine. And that's in a pitcher-friendly ballpark, like you mentioned, in San Francisco. Do I think it's a terrible signing? No, I like it for the Giants. I think that helps lengthens out their rotation, gives them some stability with their young arms that they're going to have. I think the bigger question or the bigger answer that it gives them is it moves them completely on from Farhan Zaidi and that era. Alrighty, a Verlander legend, all jokes aside, I watched him some when he was in high school. Guy was unreal in his prime. Yes, he was. He had a great run with the Tigers, kind of had some middling years, and then resurrected his career with the Astros once again and won a World Series with the Astros there. Kind of helped mentor Garrett Cole and get Garrett Cole to be the best pitcher he could be. Ultimately signed a big money deal with the Mets because the Astros weren't willing to pay him. Then they got the Mets to basically pay down half of that deal to get him to go back to the Astros. And the Mets basically buying a couple prospects from the Astros in order to get that done. He had a great year coming off of injury, won the Cy Young in the American League. And then ultimately, it just looks like the wheels came off the bus last year. And like I said, while Aaron Rodgers will probably be one of the best quarterbacks we've seen as far as the ability on the field, it didn't really translate to Super Bowls for him. And now it looks like he's washed at this point. I think that's the equivalent in Major League Baseball. While Verlander has more victories, is a better player overall than I think Aaron Rodgers is in football. I think Verlander is about as washed as Aaron Rodgers is. I think they're very comparable, at least at this point in their career. I think he has another year left, especially in Oracle. I think he's got 2 years left. I don't think he's got 2. I think he's got 1. I was calling for Verlander or Scherzer weeks ago, and now Posey has signed him. People don't know baseball better than Buster Posey, especially the information Verlander can shed on our fellow young pitchers. Yes, that's why I like the signing for the Giants, is the wisdom he'll be able to impart upon those young starting pitchers. Specifically, Harrison is one of them. I think he'll be a great mentor, too. And he's done very well in that role before. You look at Garrett Cole specifically, getting him to settle down when he was traded over from the Pittsburgh Pirates. And Verlander really got him to kind of settle down there with the Astros. That was kind of a perfect 1-2 punch there with Houston. But that's, 7 years ago now? That's a long time. This is going to be year number 20 for Verlander. How many pitchers go that long in Major League Baseball nowadays? Verlander, Scherzer. That's about it right now. Scherzer had a better year last year. I think Scherzer's got about 1 year left as well, but I think he'll be better than Verlander. But I think Verlander's wisdom will help out that young Giants team. But overall, it's a good signing for them. I think it helps, like I said, turn the page from Farhan Zaidi and will give them good production this year. Do I think they're getting Cy Young level Verlander? No. But I think this will be the farewell season for Verlander. 1 year ago, 3.1 to 3.3 ERA. Yes, that's a good ERA. But last year is my issue. I think we've seen the best Verlander has to offer. Alrighty, and welcome in. Seems like a lot of smoke with the Braves and Tanner Scott. I doubt that. I think the Braves have money to bring in somebody big this offseason. As far as big, I'm talking like a $20 million commitment total. I think starting pitchers, where that money is going to go. I think the Mets have too much interest. The Dodgers and the Yankees all have too much interest in Tanner Scott for him to go to the Braves. Remember, they still have Raisel Iglesias and Mark Bowman of the MLB, the beat reporter for the Braves for MLB.com, says that they're going to go cheaper in the bullpen. While I'm sure they have interest in Tanner Scott and other improvements to their bullpen, I don't think they're going to go to the level for Tanner Scott. Let's see, Cowboys Nation, not everyone can be Jamie Moyer. True. I still find it hard to believe he threw 190 innings at 45 and really dominated. He was very good for a very long time. I think he works for the Mariners now, too, as far as part of their broadcast team, if I remember correctly. You can also see the pitch clock in today's game have its toll on older guys as far as conditioning. I'll buy that one to a lesser extent. I think it has an effect, but I don't think it really changes everything there. I think that the pitch clock has an effect on older guys, but I don't think it basically takes a, say a 3 ERA pitcher and makes him a 5 because of the conditioning issue. Steven, 1 year ago he pitched better than 99% of MLB pitchers with a 3.1, 3.3 ERA between two teams. He had an even better ERA a couple years, a year before that when he had a 1.7 ERA when he won the Cy Young. That's not too far ago, not too long ago, but at the same time, I just think he's done. I just don't see I don't see his fastball coming back. I don't see the velocity coming back. I think his mentorship will be invaluable for the Giants. I think he'll be a good option for them as a number 3 starter. But if you're expecting a number 1, or if you're this defensive about a number 3 starter that's not going to push you to a wild card, like, what are we really talking about here? Like, if he has 1 year, 2 years left, he's no longer the pitcher that he was with a 3 ERA anymore. Those days, I think, are gone. Johnny, why not just be sad if San Francisco had to just release? Wouldn't it be just sad if Justin Verlander, after 6 months after the season starts, I don't think they'll be releasing him. I think even if things go horribly for Justin Verlander, he's going to get his full season with the Giants. I don't think there's going to be anybody asking for him to retire during the season or for them to move on from him during the year, even though he hasn't have any track record with the organization. He's going to have the right to be able to be on that major league roster for better or worse the whole year. So even if he has a 8 ERA going into June, something along those lines, which is not out of the realm of possibility because, again, he just did it last year for a period of time. If he has that level of ERA, I still think the Giants might utilize him less, might put him on the shelf for a period of time, but I don't think anybody's going to be clamoring for him to be off of the roster. All good, you're wrong, and Buster Posey knows better. We'll see. I mean, I think he's pretty much done, though. All right. Let's see here. Sensitive today. Well, some people don't like to listen to outside opinions. So, I'm not this channel for you if you don't like to listen to outside opinions. Try to keep it pretty much straight down the middle. I don't have a feeling one way or the other on Verlander. You just look at where he's at, the age that he's at. I mean, sure, he might surprise us, but what's more likely to happen? Is it that he's going to have a sub-3 or a sub-4 ERA again at this point as a 43-year-old pitcher? I'm not sure how old he is anymore. Let's check. I can't remember how old he is. 41. He's about to be 42 in 40 days. So he's going to be 42 years old, 20 years in the league. Let's look at his numbers just to kind of conclude our Justin Verlander talk today. In 2 years, Cy Young, he wins at 39. coming off of a year he did not pitch in 21. Comes back rested. He throws how many innings? 175. In 23, between two teams, the Mets and the Astros, throws 162, has a 3.22 ERA. And then in 24, Pitt throws 90 innings with a 5.48 ERA. I know it's small sample size theater here between 3 years, but you're going from a 175 coming off a year where you're completely fresh, although you are coming off of injury. You throw a 175 ERA, one of the most valuable pitchers in the game, All-Star, you have MVP votes, you look great. Mets end up signing you and then trading you back to Houston after only, half a year with the team. You throw 162 innings, pretty much similar ball to what he's been throwing his entire career, mid-3 ERA. And then last year, just look at the numbers inside of that year. Let's see if they actually have his season numbers here. There we go. Just look at the month of September, how he was finishing. That's not the Justin Verlander of old. Doesn't make a whole lot of starts between August and June. He makes 4 starts in 3 months. Beginning of the season, he was a little bit better for a period of time, and then, of course, he still had his struggles in here as well. Didn't get very deep into games. And then, I want to see if they have his velocity on here at all. Do they have his advanced stats? There we go. Fastball down to about 93 now. You remember in his heyday, Verlander got his fastball up to around 100 as he got later in the game. He usually got stronger as the games went along. I think we've seen those days come and go for Verlander. And at 42, just at a certain point, a player is going to hit a wall. And I think we saw that wall hit Verlander pretty hard last year. Alrighty, let's see if we can kind of recap everybody once again before we head out. If you guys are just joining us, make sure you guys hit that like and subscribe. The San Francisco Giants have made one addition to their Major League roster, bringing in Justin Verlander, future Hall of Famer Justin Verlander, on a 1-year, $15 million deal. Probably slots in there as their number 3 starter, will help shepherd their younger pitchers next season. Probably will be his final season, if not his penultimate season. But either way, it looks like Verlander is no longer the Hall of Fame level caliber pitcher, Cy Young caliber pitcher that he once was, but still should be a good signing for them overall. The bigger story here for the Giants is that this kind of legitimizes their offseason, their turning of the page from Farhan Zaidi and Posey's era as their GM. So, like the acquisition overall, I still like Justin Verlander as far as a pitcher being able to produce for at least one more season. Do I think he's going to be the greatest thing since sliced bread this year? No. Do I think he's at least going to be an adequate pitcher in that rotation and, not do himself a disservice by continuing to pitch this year? I think we probably should have seen the final season be this year, but I still think he'll be respectable enough to remain in the rotation this coming season for the Giants. But I think this will be his farewell tour. Get the rocking chair at every place he goes, the gifts from every city he goes to visit. I think that's what we're going to see for Justin Verlander. And the Giants, they improved their pitching staff, which is absolutely needed in a very difficult division in the NL West. You got the Padres, who have a pretty solid lineup when they're hitting right. Dodgers, of course, have a very prolific lineup and are still going to add more, it looks like. As far as minor leagues, they might bring up Dalton Rushing. They have Ohtani, of course, Betts, Freeman. They brought back Teoscar Hernandez. Conforto is there now. Muncy's still there. They brought back Tommy Edman. They traded away Gavin Lux. They bring in Kim. There are rumblings out there, of course, that Arenado wants to join the team. However unlikely that may be. Will Smith had a down year last year. Hopefully he rebounds as well. But the Dodgers are a great team out there. The Diamondbacks are loaded up this year as well on the pitching side. They have a pretty good offensive lineup as well. We'll see what the division holds for the Giants this year, but as it stands right now, I think they'll miss a wild card. But I like the acquisition of Verlander to lengthen out that lineup, or lengthen out that rotation a little bit as well. The Yankees are aggressively shopping Marcus Stroman in an effort to offload his salary right now. Offloading his salary would open up some things as far as possibilities, possibly a trade for Luis Arraez. Maybe they go after the Cardinals, Nolan Arenado, get the Cardinals to eat some of the deal for Arenado. There's some rumblings out there that they could be looking for other impact bats at the deadline. So their work is not done. They're still looking for some bullpen help as well. They were connected to Brandon Rogers, Jorge Polanco today, and Luis Arraez. We also saw the A's get an extension done with Brent Rooker right after we got off the air last night for a 5-year deal with a vesting option anyway for a 6th year as well. Good addition for the A's, making sure they can hold on to him. I think he had his best year of his career last year, and hopefully they continue to have that level of offensive production from him for at least a few more years. But I think we have seen the best Rooker has to provide, and for him to sign that 5-year, what was it, $60 million deal, that's a very cost-effective deal for the A's to be able to lock in as they prepare for their move to Vegas. So that's kind of where we're at today. We did see an extension, I haven't mentioned this one, an extension anyway by the Rays for Drew Rasmussen as well. Kind of a smaller move. Rangers made their deal official with Chris Martin. Rangers general manager Fenstermacher says that they are not prioritizing, at least number one anyway, the addition of a proven closer. I believe all that when I see it anyway. I still think they're going to be targeting Kirby Yates more than anything else right now. Roki Sasaki as well. But the market's being held up a little bit here by Bregman as far as the bigger options. But we're seeing the market start to finally move for the rest of the guys here. Now that the holiday break is over, the last couple of days have been filled with transactions. Hopefully we'll have some more tomorrow. But appreciate you guys joining us. Thank you guys for spending so much time with us. A 2-hour live today as we started a little bit earlier. We'll have 2 lives tomorrow, one around 10, 11 o'clock in the morning, and another one in the evening around 9 o'clock. So appreciate you guys joining us. We'll see you guys tomorrow. Stay warm out there, everybody.